There's this old proverb that says if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's the thread that twines our Exceptional Minds with RoboKind podcast. We want to connect you with the voices, the people, the movements, the work that's happening to promote, inspire, and achieve inclusive and celebratory moments for all. I'm Brian Baggs, CEO of RoboKind. Welcome to our episode.
Everybody, come on in. Thanks so much for joining us, you guys. We are about to have a lot of fun. Happy Wednesday. I thought it was Thursday for a second. All right, as more people are joining in, we would love for you to go ahead, put in the chat where you are joining us from. So again, go ahead and put your city, your state. We love some state pride. If you are a Hoosier, put that down. It sounds like I know that the Indiana Pacers are in the NBA Finals. Check that out. All right, sunny Jacksonville, Florida. We love it. I know there's some Saharan desert sand coming through Florida this week, so allergies are probably up the wazoo. Okay, Casper, Wyoming. I love it. We got Colorado, we got Missouri. Oh, interesting. There is a Houston, Missouri. I've never heard of a Houston, Missouri before. We have Windsor, California, Colorado. I love it. Let me put in mine as well. Milton, Florida. Welcome, Chelsea. Atlanta, Georgia, ATL. We love it. We hope that you guys are having a great time. We're going to get started in just a little bit and having a wonderful conversation today with Brian Baggs and Dr. Jessica Redcay-Shoff. Indiana. Hey, Carrie. Good to see ya. So glad that you were able to join us. Of note, you guys are more than welcome to put your cameras on so then you can interact or engage. But we would love for you to ask questions throughout our time together. You can put those questions or comments in the chat. But right now, we're just focusing on putting in the city and or state that you're coming in from. And we're going to be getting started in just a couple minutes or so. Hey, everybody coming on in. So grateful that you're able to join us. Thanks for coming in. For those of you who are new to the Teams platform, you actually have access to the chat on the right side of your screen, I believe, into where you can input any questions or comments. And so as we are about to engage with our conversation today, we would love for you to ask anything that comes to mind as we progress through our conversation. Right now, we're just asking you to put in where you're coming in from. We have another one coming in from Grayson, Georgia. Love it, Grayson. I think, don't you guys have like the #1 high school football team in the nation? I believe that's so. Rick's coming in from Austin, Texas. I love it. We'll give you guys just one more minute. One more minute, and then we're going to get officially started. I'll mention this again, but we would love for you guys to engage as much as possible. So for any of you who input something in the chat, whether that's a chat or a question or a comment, if you do it at least 5 times toward all the way from the beginning to the end of our conversation, then you'll be entered into a drawing to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So think of those questions, think of those comments. Again, that's at least 5 comments throughout our time today, and you'll be entered into a drawing to win an Amazon gift card. Cool. All right. So we are going to go ahead and get officially started. Welcome everybody to our Building Sustainable Special Ed and Early Learning Systems conversation. And so we want to intentionally call this a conversation, not a webinar, because this is going to be a live strategy session with Brian Baggs. He is our CEO. Go ahead and give us a nice wave there, Brian. Great, awesome. Hey. And then we also have Dr. Jessica Redcay-Shoff. She is our VP of Product. Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining us today. And so we are just so thankful for all of you to be joining us today. Truly, we are a tight-knit crew. We have a really unique goal to help make special education and early learning classrooms better. And because you guys are the ones that are holding everything together, and we are so grateful to be in partnership alongside with you. So the very first thing I want to make sure we do is start off with the problem space. And so right now we know that special education and early learning leadership is a little bit chaotic. I mean, you're carrying compliance pressure. I mean, there's teacher burnout. There's fragmented tools that aren't really aligned. And we know that you're not really experiencing a lot of time to breathe. So it is interesting. One director told us recently that I'm feeling like I'm playing whack-a-mole with all the fires that I'm needing to put out. And then another one was saying that every system that I'm using or that my teachers are using is supposed to help us, but none of them are talking to each other. And so as a result, there's a lot of tension, and then that brings a lot of stressors and feelings and emotions. And so, Brian, I want to first hear from your perspective is that when this tension is experienced at the leadership level, how does that play at then the classroom level and then affecting our students as well?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen, and thank you everyone for coming today. So in my role and in my career, I've gotten a chance to meet with district leaders and teachers all across the country for over a decade plus now. And, there's that saying that says ignorance is bliss. But I think it also might be that just ignorance is a little bit misleading. I think if folks knew the actual cost and the actual reality of coming in, stepping into whether it's district leadership, campus leadership, or special education classrooms, early childhood classrooms, like you're just really not prepared to understand all of the requirements, all of the stresses that are associated with that. For district leaders, it's often the case that you're having to juggle a lot of competing demands all the time, right? Like you're expected to protect the integrity of your district and the programs that you're running while simultaneously making sure that your staff feel seen and supported and equipped and encouraged, and also making sure that your families are seen and heard and understood. And all the while, we're here for the kids too, right? And we often have very complex learning profiles that we have to hold in the center of all of this, making sure that folks get the accommodations and the tools that help them find success. And most of the time, you're trying to do all of these things without enough support or time or clarity or sleep or food, because it seems like sometimes as you're running from place to place, like the thing that gets cut is that, right? And so it makes it extremely challenging. So I'll give you like a recent example. Just last week, I was speaking to a director that said that her teachers were spending more time figuring out how to deliver the curriculum than actually teach the curriculum. So like the lesson plans lived in one system, the IEPs in another, and then the data was sometimes caught and sometimes logged in another system as well. But none of this synced and none of this was actually working for her teachers in general. And she said that by the time that her teachers are ready to start lessons on any given day, like most of the room and the students had already checked out. And the thing about all of this is that it's not a lack of effort, it's a lack of alignment. And so what happens when teachers are overwhelmed is that the students and the instruction and the progress and the monitoring ends up getting missed, and students get disengaged. And when students aren't finding those wins, teachers don't get to see those successes, and you start to experience some turnover in staff. And when that happens, then it's just a snowball, right? You start to erode some of the trust that you have with your parents. And in the leadership roles, you end up becoming someone who is, the queen or the king of reaction and not the proactive or the strategy mode. And so the daily reality is one that's not easy, but it's not because of effort. It's oftentimes because of some misalignments.
Yeah, totally. And so we know that this is not just happening in a vacuum. And so for those of you who are listening in, feel free to echo like this has like been your experience. Feel free to put like your uh, opinion or thoughts on the matter. And so what I think this revolves around is our question for today is how do we create IEPs that work in real classrooms and that do not run our teachers and our teams to the ground. And so, because right now we know the truth is that our educators are needing to be miracle workers and they're doing their best and they obviously deserve the best tools. And that's what we're trying to do. And so, Jessica, you are VP of product here at Robokind. We're so thankful that you're part of us on this journey. And so I know that you've also been part of this like holistic journey yourself both from the classroom level, but then also from the leadership level. And so I'm kind of curious, what has this whole IEP work looked like from your angle?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, Brian, and everyone for being here today to talk about this important topic. Like various IEP goals to manage, like can feel very chaotic, but at the same time, it's also true that it's very magical because Brian was talking about those wins. And when you see wins for students where they're mastering and generalizing IEP goals, that feels so good to be able to share that with families and stakeholders and student success. And it also helps you retain those teachers as well as they help students meet those success. And the other thing that is also exciting is that like we get to teach like whole students, like right, like whole people, like we're teaching people. And so we can look at all of the different domains related to IEP goals, that we set in place for these students, whether they are academic or if you have different like behavioral things that you're addressing, but like you're able to help that student across all of those domains. And the other thing is like one thing for me when anything is difficult in my experience for like teaching or anything I'm doing, I always go back to my why. Like, why am I doing this? And one of the things is always resonates with me when we talk about IEPs is like we have these goals in place to help these students be successful, to
Yeah.
meet these specific needs and where these students need to what they need to work on and everything. And so one example that I have is when I was working with a teacher who had a goal for a student. This goal wasn't just, they had two different goals. Like one was academic for phonics to help the students learn their letters and letter sounds. And then the other one related to social skills and helping that student like self-regulate in different situations and calm down as they would arise. And so it was really exciting to see the success of this student
Yeah.
to be able to increase their letter sound recognition and master that IEP goal, like an academic goal, but also like for a social skills goal to not just master but generalize it to
Yeah.
settings. Like there was an unexpected fire drill like when I was there with that teacher, and that student was like able to handle it by going through all of these different things that like we had practiced and everything like that. And really, that's what we just love at RoboKind.
Yeah.
We just love collecting these stories from our partners. If you have any stories and you're here and you want to put that into the chat, remember if you enter like, is it 5 times, you could have a
Yeah, five
chance to
times.
win a gift card. So this could be one of those moments for you too. But it's just really great to see these students, developing across all of these domains in all of these ways.
Yeah, one specific thing that like highlighted in my brain when you were talking, Jessica, is when you're like when IEPs can be magical. And I think that's what we want to provide for our classrooms is this alignment where teaching becomes the priority, not just managing. And so that's what today is all about, is finding a pathway forward that's possible and not just possible, but also sustainable. And so what we're moving on to next is that we talked about the problem space and the thing that we are aware of is that there's a lot of really great companies out there, including RoboKind, and wanting to be part of the solution. And so today, of course, we have the privilege of talking with Brian Baggs. Again, he's our CEO. And so, Brian, can you tell us a little bit about the mission about RoboKind, like where it started and how it's sparking the work that we're doing moving forward?
Yeah, sure. This is one of my favorites. So I'm CEO, but I'm not the founder. The founder is someone who's become a good friend of mine. And like any great lesson that you bring into the classroom, it's often years in the making and has some backstory. Maybe it was some of the challenges or the excitements from when you were a student, and so you're bringing new things in that you can unlock for your students today. Well, RoboKind's got a cool story too. And so our founder, Richard Margolin, was anything but a neurotypical student. And I say that with the highest admiration because his brain is just so unique and different. An example of this would be that when I was in middle school, in my science classes, I think I was learning about plate tectonics and maybe dissecting a worm to kind of learn about some of that different anatomy. But Richard, when he was in middle school, he had actually clept out of going to school, and he was actually working on the Human Genome Project. And then as he got into his teens, he was building robots for museums and centers, and always had this high curiosity and this high aptitude that brought him to like the most bizarre and craziest expeditions and explorations and Arctic circles and everything in between. But at one point, that high curiosity, that high innovation, and trying to figure out how things work got him into understanding why these universities were so interested in the robots that he was building. They would often say that they were using these robots to support students who had learning differences or were neurodivergent or were diagnosed on the autism spectrum disorder. And he got super interested and curious about those moments too. And eventually he started a company around this space. He and his father said, acquiring critically important behavioral and social skills is necessary for students to be able to thrive. So how can we use like technology as a conduit to helping students get hooked, excited, engaged, and eventually reaching to some outcomes? And so that put him on a journey, and it put RoboKind on its first journey of working with occupational therapists, ABA specialists, speech language pathologists, um, professors and researchers around learning science to kind of take the things that are working, that are evidence-based, that are research-backed, and incorporating that into a way that would meet some of these students in ways that maybe traditional means and methods had not. And so that was part of RoboKind's story. From there, there was lots of opportunities of connections with universities and in research studies, and then also some like practical real world stuff too. They were really fortunate in the early years to be able to meet Dr. Lisa Rayford Kershaw, who was working with the State Department of South Carolina. And they embarked on like this 3-year study to look at 600 students and how could RoboKind use its strategies to help students master real world IEP goals. And they started to find some success. But that's just part of it. Along the way, RoboKind also had an opportunistic and exciting moment when they met Dr. Jessica Redcay-Shoff. So Jess, talk a little bit about your experience, because you're absolutely part of the origin of what RoboKind is becoming and has become and is marching towards.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Before coming to RoboKind, I actually have been in education for 20 years as a teacher and a professor. And during that time, I enjoyed teaching, but I also love learning. And so I wanted to pursue my doctorate to continue to learn like more. And along the way, I worked on researching different curriculum that I could review and see. And then I ended up writing my own curriculum, and I focused on the whole child or foundational spaces, right, with like numeracy and speech articulation and phonics and these different areas like this. And then I also coined in education the term IVACT, which is interactive technology with multisensory input strategy. I believe that every student can learn, and we can create those neural pathways of learning for students by activating different parts of the brain, by having like technology used in meaningful ways and having student use these hands-on learning opportunities. And so it's so exciting to see students learning and increasing learning outcomes, but enjoying the process. And so then I started going to a lot of different conferences and everything like that. And at one conference in particular, I became aware of RoboKinds a long time ago, and I started integrating this into my classroom. And I just saw how intentional RoboKind was in ensuring that we used evidence-based practices, that we were making sure that we're focusing on the whole learner, and it like always about the impact and getting these
Yeah.
outcomes and engaging students. And so that's why I wanted to join RoboKind, is because like we make an impact like for like the whole child using these foundational skills. And then we were, excited to be able to bring that curriculum that I authored over to RoboKind for the three that I talked about here previously.
Yeah, so Jess, I'm going to jump off of that. And, I'm also noticing, I believe it's D. And so my apologies if I'm saying your name wrong, but I see some of the things that you put into your chat there about, hey, having to respect and hold space for neurodivergences in classrooms and different learning styles with our neurotypical kids. And the reality is that this thing is extremely difficult, and kind of leaning on some of the conversation that Jess just mentioned is that, part of what gets me excited about RoboKind is that we can like really put together a shift and looking at holistic solutions. I feel like so often the case is that we're expecting these children, these students of ours, to be able to do like impossible things. We think about fragmented types of instruction and supports. And so we may ask like our students to work on some emotional understanding in one setting. We might then kind of come into like some occupational therapy, and we might also go into some elements of ABA therapies and kind of like some conversational dynamics. And we might also have to work on like speech articulation in another section. And we might also have to take a look at decoding skills with phonics. And we've also got the academic disciplines of numeracy. And we end up creating these like very complicated IEP structures. And we expect our students to be able to somehow magically assemble all of these various skills that are taught in isolation and in fragmentation, and somehow they're going to be able to do the work to put it all together. But with Jess coming into RoboKind and being able to build out that full foundation space, we now can think about something totally different. We can think about an integrated approach that not only respects the whole child, but also respects the realities of our classrooms and the complex set of differences that may be there, and how we can cobble something together that allows us to find success in so many different ways, not as fragmented, like isolated techniques of instruction, practice, and generalization, but as part of a holistic story. And so this is the big picture that we're trying to say that helps us deal with some of the struggles that we talked about on the front end, is that we could picture a world where it's not that you need more programs that operate in fragmentation and isolation with expectations that the students and the classrooms are going to somehow put it all together. You need programs that align with one another. What we're talking about today is not a total overhaul to the way in which you approach teaching and learning. It's about stitching together the things that are already adding value into a system that helps you breathe again, get on top of the classroom management that will help you find success. And so the picture this moment of this webinar is that you imagine a classroom where your team walks in with clarity. They know what they're teaching. The students are engaged because of that interactive technology, multisensory strategy that's unlocking moments of success. And the data that you need for IEPs to support like skill development and progress with your students and communications with parents are building in the background, while you're also getting recommendations for what instruction can look like. And so the whole goal is that you're able to move away from the all-nighters of data review and lesson prep and the Sunday night prep prep marathon and the weekend scaries, and you're into a place of experiencing joy in teaching and learning again. And for us, like, that doesn't have to just be some sort of dream that's distant from reality, but it's what we're trying to build in connection with so many educators across the country. And so today, this is about alignment. It's about momentum. It's about finding joy and relief and success. You deserve to feel like your systems are going to work for you, not against you, to help you find success with each of those students in your class and with all the differences and unique personalities that they bring to the table.
I love it. I don't know if anybody feels like they can go through a brick wall right now, but I mean, sign me up. So, I mean, I'm pumped. I hope that you guys are pumped. Again, please keep on sharing about your experiences and your success stories with IEPs within your own classroom. And that's what we're all about, is highlighting and celebrating what's going on currently. And so we have a lot of exciting things going on. We've already talked about the problem space now. We've now talked about the why. And so I kind of want to go a little bit more into the what. And so we developed social skills over 8 years ago, and RoboKind Phonics has been in development for now over 10 years and was officially released 2 years ago. And so it feels like there's a lot of momentum that RoboKind is going into the future. And so, Jessica, can you tell us a little bit more about what's to come in the rest of 2025? And can you explain a little bit further? You had mentioned before about the term IVACT and how that is so beneficial for students to stay engaged.
Right. So at RoboKind, right, like we have also, like with interactive technology and with IVACT, we have virtual avatar teaching assistant. And here at the beginning of the year, we updated our virtual avatar. And it is so important to not just engage students, but that repetition and different inputs, like for students to be able to see and hear, and you're connecting to all of these different senses and help students retain the information and hearing it multiple times throughout a lesson. The other exciting thing that's going on this year is that we are continuing to expand, like with our curriculum offering. So we have social skills, phonics, numeracy, and speech articulation. And all of these are ways to help address those holistic IEP goals that you have for your students. And there's a couple things I want to highlight about our curriculum. Like we have our case endorsement, and that's because we use these evidence-based practices from the National Autism Center. So we ensure that everything that we're doing in our curriculum is ensuring that we're making sure that it helps students improve their learning outcomes and that it's research based and it's effective and it's going to make a difference for them. And we've seen those proven results. And that's so exciting to see the success and the wins. And that we'll be talking about a little bit later. But I do want to let you know too that for coming today, we're going to be giving you a director toolkit at the end, and that's going to give you a lot of great resources and things as a thank you for being here today. So please make sure that you check that out as well. But maybe it's just easier if some people might want to just see it. It might be easier than us just talking about it. Should we take a look, Stephen?
Let's do it. I believe that we have a video on our next slide. Let's go for it.
So we've been using RoboKind here since February of 2024. It has been a great experience, a new learning tool for all of our students, both in the classroom as well as using in speech services. They love it. It teaches a lot of the calm down strategies, learning how to express your different emotions. So that is wonderful. We're really starting to open a lot of doors and using it in a lot of different capacities and with different support staff around the school buildings.
Education teacher at Knightsville Elementary School. I teach self-contained autism class. Like laying on the floor having a whole conversation with Carver, and I've never heard the student talk before, so it was really cool. They love it. They're like, I mean, first thing, they're like, where's Carver? Where's Carver? The kids like really get into it, and we practice like whatever we're supposed to do as we're going through with the avatar. But I don't ever get anyone not wanting to participate or not wanting to take their turn.
I love it. That is such a great video. I mean, we heard from Tara from Dorchester too in South Carolina, and then Paige from East Chicago in Indiana. And I loved how they were saying that they were able to engage these students specifically with the virtual avatar experience. And I'm so excited to step further into about this play-based learning and using interactive technology. So, Jessica, can you like further share about why play is so necessary when it comes to learning?
Absolutely. So when you're playing, you're enjoying the process of what you're doing, right? And so in the comments here, I see that Di was talking about bringing back the joy into teaching and
Yeah.
everything. And I have found over the years that like when my students are enjoying the lesson, I feel like a rock star teacher. I feel like, wow, I'm doing a great job. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I become a better teacher because my students are like smiling, they're like engaged and happy. And so I feel like when you are bringing forward activities that are joyful, playful, and fun for your students, then you're all going to have a great time. But it has to be based in learning because we also saw great comments from Carrie and Di about the progress that the students are making in their classroom in a very short amount of time. And that
Yeah.
doesn't happen by accident. We have progress for students because we're intentional to ensure that the playful based learning with interactive technology that you see when we looked at that demo and that students get to use hands-on learning centers, that it's all based in aligning with the IEP goals that students have. But we also see that we're moving away from that, like only 5% of students like are learning when the teacher's only just talking, like right
Mm,
to the students. We want to make sure that we engage the rest of the class. Like every student needs to learn who we're lucky enough to have in our classroom to teach. And so we need to make sure that we bring forth practices like IVACT that can
yeah.
transform these learning experiences, for our students.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in if it's okay. Like, Jess, we're so fortunate. Like, you walked us into this whole IVACT pedagogy around curriculum and instruction and teaching and learning. And one of the things that I love about that is that I feel like we finally figured out what the right size of tech is, right? Like so many times, like we don't adopt tech because tech often excludes the teacher. But the hope is that the tech would actually bring inclusion with the teacher so that she or he could engage with their students. Carrie, I see you. I've been fortunate enough to come into your classroom, but I've watched how that technology can be a bridge that helps connect teachers and students, not just students and screens, as they're going through this process of learning. And so, I love all about this pedagogy and how it goes deep into like the science of what works and the neural pathways, but still makes it something that we can all enjoy. And so thank you, Jess, for walking us into that as an organization.
Yeah, Brian, and it's so great that we have this unique license at RoboKind to use the IVACT, in our curriculum that you're doing here and everything. And I also just want to say that I have a lot of speaking engagements coming up about the exact topic that you're just talking about, Brian. And I hope that people can join me if you're going to go to any of them. So maybe in the chat we can drop some of those different opportunities. And if you're there, we'd love for you to connect at our RoboKind booth booth or attend my presentation that I have coming up too. I'm actually co-presenting with our virtual avatar teaching assistant, which, yeah, it's going to be pretty fun.
So fun. I love it. Yes, we just put the locations of the conferences that Jessica is going to be speaking at this upcoming year. One's coming up this weekend at Georgia CEC. So exciting. So, all right, it seems like there's a lot of amazing things that are part of the Robokind curriculum suite. I mean, we have the virtual avatar teacher assistants, and that whole premise is like, how can we keep kids hooked? How can we use technology? And then we have IFACT. I mean, that's the interactive technology with varying games. And then we have the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile tools that are part of our learning kits, and that activates different parts of the brain for students to learn various lessons. And then along all of this, though, is like the foundation of how everything is formed. I mean, this is case endorsed. I mean, this is built by teachers for teachers. And underpinning all of this are the evidence-based practices that are aligned with the National Autism Center and also your state and then the national standards as well. So what you are receiving is high quality all throughout. And so we've been talking all along this way about like this like IEP tracking, and we want to make sure that it is a seamless process for you. Because like one of the biggest strengths along our curriculum is a tracking system that doesn't drain you. Like you shouldn't have to go to 3 different sites and 5 different folders to track the progress of your students. And the nice thing about Robokind is that tracking happens in real time, and it's embedded in the instructional flow, and it's aligned to your goals. So Jessica, you're heavily involved with this IEP tracking process. Again, you're the VP of product. And so can you walk us through about what this looks like tangibly in our classrooms?
Sure. So, at Robokind, we're aware that it is really tough and important for you to have a time-saving tool for IEPs that's right there, easy for you to use. You don't have to jump to different places to use it. Plus, you need an IEP tool that promotes fidelity of the quality of instruction that happens across the district. And we need to have clear communication to stakeholders from the reports that we have. So in looking at these different things, we wanted to make sure that we created this tool that would be easy for teachers to use. And I'm super excited, Di, in the comments. I'm just really excited about the comments you're sharing and all the things you're exploring in your classroom about how you're finding the IEPs in Robokind Central to be super beneficial and helpful. So there's 3 things that I want to share about our IEP tool. The first one is if you go into Robokind Central or before a lesson starts, actually, you can filter your lessons based on IEP goals, which is so beneficial because you know how in a lot of classroom teachers have tabs for IEP goals and like to practice. This is like your online, quick, ready to go IEP practice. Like you just filter and you find it. The next thing that we have is great too, which is you can customize IEP reports. And so what this looks like is you can go in and select an IEP goal for students. You can change it to that student's name, and you can change the mastery level. By default, it's at 80% per student, but you can customize it based on your students. And then you can insert different anecdotal notes of students' progress towards that. And then the last thing, Stephen, I want to say about this, because I feel like I could just keep going about this tool, is that we have an opportunity for you to like take this report then, right? And it's all ready and you can filter it in different ways so you can prepare it, for all those meetings and to share. And it is like so exciting that that you can say to like a parent, like, hey, look at how great like your child is doing, and share those resources with families and different stakeholders.
Yeah, and what I also appreciate about our IEP tracking system is that it's really simple into where this can be used across all different types of roles. So if you're onboarding a new teacher, or if you're filling a mid-year gap or covering for with a long-term sub, is that our system just works, is that students are able to live in multiple classrooms, and then their IEPs are aligned all across the way. So it's like a whole group effort where people are able to follow this really simplistic system. And Also, one thing I'm really passionate about, I'm the director of engagement here at RoboKind, and our whole team is full of former educators and therapists and directors themselves. And you would have a very own support team that supports our educators and our classrooms all along the way. Like, this isn't just like a here's the curriculum, here's the program, and like best of luck. We are full of really passionate people and making sure that this implementation works. And so we have talked a lot about some of our learnings and what we have experienced over the past 10 years. And so, Brian, I would also love to kind of see about like what else have we learned from like the field with RoboKind?
Sure. And so I'm trying to be somewhat conscious of time. That's one of the things that we talked about earlier that we're trying to add value back to. So I'm going to go over this kind of quickly here, and then we can send out this deck and also some of the other information associated with our director's toolkit as we continue to go. And so we're very grateful, and we want to make sure that you have some tools that you can use right away. Earlier I talked about going from prototype to proof, and part of that was the research that we did with the South Carolina Department of Education. And what we were really tracking is that can this work in actual school classrooms, and can we actually help students generalize and master the skills associated with their IEPs? That was part of the early studies that really helped us figure out how to best not just create the kind of curriculum and the pedagogy, but the sort of work that's required with schools to help all of that come together and us to find success. There's a few more slides that I'll just kind of quickly go over as it relates to results from the field, going way back into the day, taking a look at literally the neural pathways that were developed or in development as folks were using RoboKind and social skill instruction. And what this says here, and there's some research on this that you can read about later, but we actually track that, with this type of engagement and strategy, that we can light up additional parts of the brain that help with putting together the skills and getting them to a place of being acquired and used and generalized. And so that was super encouraging and insightful as we move forward. As we go to another slide, there's just like 3 or 4 more that I just want to kind of quickly talk about. We talked about RoboKind phonics being something that has a backstory of 10 years or more in research and development. Dr. Jessica Redcay-Shoff was part of her original work was this longitudinal study of kindergarten learners in Pennsylvania. And we started to track that their success with using our program, with using the program that she authored to help us march towards decoding and phonics mastery, which we see here. There's another opportunity that we had to do some additional research more recently with pre-service and first grade learners in North Carolina. You can see some of the pre and the post assessments and some of the impact that RoboKind had associated with that. And then the last one that's just charts, and we'll get an opportunity to go through more of this later, was kind of a multi-regional site study that we got to do across Indiana, Pennsylvania, North Dakota, and Texas more recently in 2024, all marching towards the same sort of results. And so, one of the guiding principles is that we would hold both a holistic perspective and approach while delivering measurable outcomes. So we know that measurable outcomes matter to the students and families that we serve. Outcomes are what matters to the teachers and district staff and really the broader set of community. And so this is something that's very much part of what we track as an organization as well. And then the last slide that I have here is basically some of the additional research that Jessica was involved in as well, about looking at what we know about what's required to take place within the brain that would support students with the reading process. And so a lot of you are probably familiar with this already, but there's 3 different parts of the brain that are that we have to build connections with to help with decoding and reading. And it's a very challenging thing. Reading is very hard. But we can find better success when we use this IVACT strategy, because it allows us to light up additional elements in the brain that help us build pathways and build connections unto finding great success. And so there's a bunch of this, but I think,
Yeah.
Stephen, if I remember correctly, sometimes like outside of the research and the case studies and the white papers, sometimes it's just easier to hear from people that have used the program and some of the things that they've seen as well. Is that what's next for us?
Yeah, exactly. We want you guys to hear a little bit more directly from our partners that have been utilizing the program.
Schools nationwide are looking for ways to improve social and emotional learning and to address the needs of each student. And this is a unique way to do that. And it's a fun way. It's a fun way for our students and for our teachers.
Never thought anything like this would be in my teaching career, and it's made a huge difference for the kids.
Speaking of things that are inclusive, that is meaningful, and that brings about a arrangement for all. When you look at that, you look at positive outcomes for students with disabilities. And we saw how discipline decreased when we implemented Milo and then Carver, then we added our ladies to
Dr. Wakely and I are always looking for cutting edge technology and resources that help our teachers. We have amazing teachers in Marshall County Schools, so any tool that we can add for them to help do that. So we've just been so excited to have Robo. So our district started using RoboKind, I guess, around September of last year. So we were all new to it. I work pretty much at a middle school, so I have a very much smaller population than when I was at elementary school. I work with a classroom with students who have mild intellectual disabilities and or are on the autism spectrum. And so I've been using RoboKind to target specific skills with them. Some social skills, but I really like the RoboKind tools to help with their own self-de-escalation. So using those tools with RoboKind to help them kind of identify when they're frustrated or upset, some tools that they can use and the lingo from RoboKind to use to help them de-escalate. When my students are in crisis and I say, we're gonna go calm down with Carver, and they go right to Carver, and we do one of the strategies. I know some students like certain breathings better than others, but I also let them choose which one they want to do with Carver. And they kind of just went over there and did most of it by themselves. So then we're just trying to work on them now not having Carver and still using those calm down anywhere strategies without him present. They have been doing some of those strategies.
I do have students that are nonverbal in my classroom, and teachers they stop me on the hallway. Hey, your students say hi to me in this way.
Yes.
It's huge for some of our
Yes.
I do have a teachers that don't talk to people.
She talks to them. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Ready for your first word?
Yeah.
Let's do this one. Ready?
Buzz.
Awesome. Yeah, that truly is one of my all-time favorite videos at RoboKind, because we are not just about what takes place in the classroom, is that we are passionate about what takes place beyond the classroom, all about that generalization. And you were able to hear firsthand about what's taking place inside of our classrooms with our partners all over the nation, but also all over the globe. And so we've had such a really profound discussion today. And so we've talked about the problem space. We've talked about the why. We then talked about the what with RoboKind curriculum offerings. And then we talked about the research and how it was developed. And so before we wrap things up, I do want to talk about like what's coming next, if you're interested in continuing that conversation with us. So Brian, can you help us out?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really this. It's like a no pressure thing. But if this session has helped you at all, if it's given you a little bit of inspiration, it's given you a moment of clarity, we'd love to keep the conversation going. We don't have sales reps at RoboKind, but we do have partnership managers. And so one of the things that we're offering is a one-to-one strategy session for folks who want to talk through what maybe this could look like or maybe not for your district. So there's no pressure, just kind of a simple roadmap, conversation, exploration. And if there's anything that we can do to help, that's what we're here for. We want you to be able to find the success and the joy and the moments that feel like wonderful wins for everyone involved, for your teachers, for your families, your students. We want all of that to happen. And then additionally, even if you choose not to do that, but I would encourage you to consider, we're also going to send you a director's toolkit. So even if now's not the right time, we want you to have something helpful that you can take back with you for, joining this session. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help.
Awesome. Well, cool. All right. So now is the time to have a live Q&A. If you guys would like to ask any questions, inquire anything further from Brian or Jessica, please put it in the chat. We've covered a lot of information, and now we want to hear from you. Like, what's resonating? What questions do you have about how this could fit inside of your district or school? Or feel free to put in the chat a success story. I mean, we've loved hearing from you, Carrie and Di, the progress that's been taking place inside of your own classrooms. So yeah, please go ahead and put any questions that you guys have inside of the chat here on Teams. Again, that's going to be on the right side of your screen and where you can type your message and then hit enter or press that arrow button and then it will populate. But now's the time to ask any of your questions. And if there aren't any questions right now, you can take a little bit of time to think. But if you would rather be a answerer to a question is, what's the biggest challenge for you with aligning IEP goals to instruction? So let me go ahead and put this in the chat as well, in case if you would rather be a answerer to one of the questions is, what's your biggest challenge with aligning IEP goals to instruction? Again, feel free to either answer that question or feel free to ask anything that's on the top of your mind based on our conversation, our strategy session here today. And then one final question I'm going to put in the chat. Oh, it looks like we actually got one from Di. So are numeracy, phonics, and social skills all available programs at this time? Thanks so much for that question, Di. Jessica or Brian, do you want to answer that?
Sure, I can answer that question. So earlier we talked about some of the things that have already come, and then we talked about all the things coming for 2025. So right now you can have access to our phonics and social skills program. I've gotten all the sneak peeks, the behind the scenes. We've got opportunities to test. The numeracy that is coming this calendar year, would be so excited for you to get an opportunity to try that as well. And then the other one wasn't mentioned, but the speech articulation is coming this year too. And so our goal is to really just kind of listen. And one of the things that we kept hearing was this march towards being able to build a holistic solution that would really be able to look at the whole child and all the different things that would be required to come together. And so we are a small but mighty company trying to meet that call, meet that demand, and we are really close to being able to release those things, and that's what's set for this calendar year. Great question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Di. Again, feel free to ask any other questions for us. All right. Well, I want to put one more thing in the chat is, again, ask two questions, especially as we continue to keep the conversation going, is think about how, like, what's your biggest challenge with aligning IEP goals to instruction? And then two, how are your teachers currently tracking progress and how is that going? And this is where we would love to keep the conversation going. So Brian, again, can you help us out? What is the best way to do next steps with the RoboKind team?
Yeah, look, I mean, some of these things are really challenging. I got some messages that some folks were able to jump things in, and some folks were having to kind of do a listen and drive as they're going from one site to the next. And so totally want to respect all of that. I know what is often the case is that on the heels of some of this stuff, having a partner that kind of comes into the space with you to think about what next steps could be, to evaluate whether or not this is something that could find success within your school or within your district, can be helpful. And so that's what we exist to do here. If this session provided any sort of value or excitement or sparked some curiosity, like, we'd love to make ourselves available to chat. And so there's this little like QR code here, like you can click on it and you can actually pick a time that works for you. And so our former educators have some regional exposure and expertise. So tying in some of those pieces together, you can book a time on a calendar that works for them. And that can be kind of your next step towards having another conversation. And like I said, like, there's no pressure. Nobody has sales rep in their title. We're just partnership managers here. And so sometimes that means explorations on starting something new. Sometimes that means explorations on kind of diving into maybe some of those additional curriculum topics that are on our roadmap for this year to kind of support the requests that we've had come in. So that's there. And then the last thing is that, look, be on the lookout for that director's toolkit. Like, we wanted to be able to offer something today that was practical, that would help you understand some of the different ways that you might be able to think about alignments around IEP. There's a bunch of little goodies inside of there. And so I would 100% encourage you to take a look at that when it comes across your inbox. I know some of these inboxes with some of our school systems can be anti-inbound new content, so it might be worth to take a look, search RoboKind in that spam filter just to make sure you're not missing out on that. You've come, I want to make sure you get that toolkit for part of your participation today. And it looks like I'm getting some insights here that you can also just download directly from the QR code, so even better. But yeah, all this to say, we'd love to keep the conversation going. Rooting you on for your success and as this year, wraps up and as we think about the year to come.
Yeah, I love it. Well, gang, thank you guys so much for being here today. And we know that all of your time is really, really valuable, and the work you're doing is too important, honestly, for you to be buried underneath broken systems. And so we are so thankful to be alongside you on this journey, because honestly, you deserve the best. So we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and, of course, rest of your week. We'll see you later.
Thanks.
That wraps up this episode of Exceptional Minds with RoboKind. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found inspiration to bring back to your own learning community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to connect with you on social media, so follow RoboKind for more resources and updates on inclusive education. Until next time, keep supporting and celebrating every learner, and remember, together we can empower exceptional minds.